when I started playing guitar, very quickly I got interested in learning blues guitar because I just thought the inflection of and the way people play blues is just a beautiful way to learn to play guitar. I mean, where it's just a matter of how you hit the note, how you pick the note, and how you learn to stress the strings, and just the emotional feeling of content. As I got interested in other music, I always wanted to retain some of that technique within it. The chordal thing, I think it came from, well, originally I played piano, and so when I was really young I took piano lessons, and then later started playing guitar. So every time I pick up a guitar, I think it's almost like, what was your first language you learned? So because it was piano originally, I kind of look at the guitar as kind of like a keyboard kind of thing. So I have a tendency to try to extract some of those voicings that you maybe would do on a piano or guitar, because to me they sound good.
Yeah.
And I like the way they sound on piano, so I kind of I try to find them and put them on guitar, And sometimes they might be, I mean, there's plenty of classic cats that have, really beautiful voicings on guitar. It's definitely not a new thing, but, and I love, it's almost like, you get to the point where you realize there's just great magic and great beauty in every style of music and every style of playing. And so it's just a matter of where you put your strength or where you put your attention and stuff. I've learned to appreciate just, folk chords on the guitar, just like, great voicing stuff. But you can just kind of fan it out, and you start with an A or whatever, and you can, put a, it's the same chord, just changing whatever. It's just kind of adding and fanning out the notes to just kind of embellish it,
But you would also do this in your single note playing, where you would play these different progressions and things like that.
And I think that just comes from like thinking about those chords, and how those chords fit. It's inside the chords.
Yeah.
If I think about it piano-wise, it just opens up and just playing it as the guitar might stipulate. Just kind of trying to think outside the box a little bit.
You also did this with the different groupings and things like that too. Where you use odd groupings of fives, groupings of sixes, and in your linear playing. And I didn't hear a lot of people doing that when I first heard you. It was so, whoa, that's amazing. And when you hear these odd groupings where things just don't line up in the same spot, it makes the lines more interesting sounding. Mm-hmm. And is that something that you just hear it that way?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of the people that you learn from, and some people, they'll say like, oh, you have this original style, and I go, well, it's only original because it's the people I took from, and it was just I learned to play like, the early Clapton blues record, that tone,
Yeah.
I love that tone, and of course Hendrix, and later on, I really got interested in Bill Connors from him of the Seven Cats in Chick Corea, because he started opening up into more of this kind of fusion thing, but he had that kind of Clapton tone and that kind of bluesy thing, which caught my I had heard some fusion before that, and I thought, yeah, that's cool, but it wasn't really making me, I want to learn to play that. So I heard Bill Connors, and it was like, oh, he's got a little bit of that blues in him. So I was like, I want to learn that. So I think it was a combination starting with Clapton, and then Bill Connors, and then listening to McLaughlin, and then going back and listening to all these other cats, and then you start realizing there's all this magic and everything. And so as I was trying to accumulate these different people, I knew that centrally I wanted it to have a certain tone and a certain touch, which I tried to develop. So that was kind of the thread by putting all these styles together. And that's about, it's not necessarily that original, it's just the matter of the people that
It's just those particular collection of influences.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
but
Yes.
it's fascinating the fusion influences like that. That's really that's fascinating to hear that.
Yeah. I think that kind of opened up my ear to almost like a little wider aperture on rock music. Because like when John McLaughlin came out with Birds of Fire, I'd go see John Bly and just the freedom.
Yeah.
And it caught my ear, because especially when in the original he was playing like this SG through the Marshall.
Oh yeah.
And he had this kind of like, kind of like a Clapton song, but he was playing these crazy licks.
Yeah.
Like, this is really cool. I mean, I've always had this kind of like handicap where the sound has to reach me first, and then I'll listen to what somebody has to say. Otherwise, and I don't know if it's even that crazy, because I mean, music is sound. It's does it connect with you? Does the sound? And I've always loved the sound of piano and that pure tonality, and so I've always kind of chased that with electric guitar, and then like a lot of the early cats, they had such a beautiful sound.
Now you're known as kind of a perfectionist. You had been known as a perfectionist with your tone. And
recovery now.
you're in recovery.
Yeah. I just show up and play straight through the PA now.
Okay, how important, first of all, let's talk about this, when you're playing a solo and the tone, the feedback you're getting from your amp to your hands. How important is having the right sound for you to feel like you can really play? I mean, are there some nights where your sound is so good that you just can play anything?
Yeah, no, that's really well said. It's totally true. For me, if it doesn't sound right, it's almost like the sound is nice, but even more important is, how does it feel?
Yeah.
How does the polarity of all the situational events of the guitar and the amp and the acoustics feel to where it's like wind to your back, And I think the more stuff you run through, sometimes the harder it is to get that. It can wreak havoc with that. And then the electricity thing is really tough. Like if you get to a building that has a lot of dirty AC, it can really trash your sound. And it's like
that's true.
And sometimes I get to the gig, Dustin, gentleman I work with, we'll go around and try different AC plugs in the building to find one that's, and it's like, wow, it's like all of a sudden you go to like the bathroom hole, and it's like you plug in there and it's like it sounds better. And it's all these things add up. And I mean, if you were to like pinpoint one, go, well, that's silly, it's kind of obsessive, and I agree. But it's you getting 3% here, 3% there. All of a sudden, you make 4 changes and your tone's 30% better.
Yeah.
But the point is, I think, how can you construct something that's repeatable and not so complicated that it's impossible. But it is important to me to make it feel right and make me want to play.
One of your solo sounds has a violin tone to it.
Right.
And it has a very dark sound. It's a beautiful. What led your ear to that sound? And can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, honestly, I think you need to just listen to early Clapton records. I mean, they just had that kind of sound. We just. Wanted to have a little more gain in those records because it had that fusion aspect, and like the more gain you had, the more raggy it gets sometimes. So I think I have a tendency to run a little. I wish I ran a little more treble on my lead, but the treble just gets so trashy sound.
Right.
And I would love to have an amp that had like a ton of gain and real pure harmonics, and I could add treble and it would be pure sound. That would be great. But I think I have a tendency to err on the side of less treble, and then sometimes if I get it more bassy sounding, then like in the studio or out of the mixing board live, we add certain frequencies that you can get away with that won't add the trash as much.
Yeah, the trash that's hard to that when you hear that hashy sound like that, it gets fatiguing.
Yeah.
Probably to like when you're hearing it yourself is playing it really.
Yeah. So I try to get more of that kind of. But that's just the sound that I kind of. So, but I think I have a tendency to err on the side of less treble, and then sometimes if I get it more bassy sound, and then like in the studio or out of the mixing board live, we add certain frequencies that you can get away with that won't add the trash as much.
Yeah, the trash that's hard to that when you hear that hashy sound like that, that gets fatiguing.
Yeah.
Probably to because when you're hearing it yourself with playing, it really sounds nice.
Yeah. So I try to get more of that kind of. But that's just the sound that I kind of like for the lead. But then there's an alternative sound that I'll use where like more of the Hendrix fuzz sound, which I like that too. But that's kind of a different approach. So and I never could decide which one I liked better. So I started using multiple amp setup. One of them has more of the Hendrix tone with the fuzzy sound, and one has more of that smoother volume tone.
And how has your setup changed over the
It
years?
really hasn't changed that much. I mean, I will just use different Fender amps for rhythm, and I use different amps for a dirty rhythm sound, and then I use different Marshalls for a lead tone. But it's kind of stayed. The concept stayed the same because I've never been able to find an amp that could do all the sounds that I wanted, which would really be great. I'd love to just have one amp, but it's hard to do.
Well, your rhythm tones and your lead tones are so different from one another that it requires you to have very different amplifiers really for that. You play Fender style guitars. Sometimes you run into things where you get hum. We were talking about this earlier, that does that ever drive you nuts?
It doesn't bother me unless it gets ridiculous. I mean, I have played some gigs where the hum is louder than you know from the single coils, and then I ended up playing the night on a humbucking guitar. And I've been trying to find some hum canceling pickups that sound more like single coils, which is tough to find.
It's hard.
So usually I'm kind of amazed at how much I've gotten to where I've just blocked it out. I guess it's like somebody who has to sleep next to a subway. They just get used to it, and they go, I don't hear it anymore or something. But sometimes it's manageable, but every once in a while it can be a real problem.
So what in your career have you not done that you want to do?
I really want to try to. I have some ideas for guitar playing and sound in my head that I really want to try to achieve, and I think sometimes I'm trying to fight a briar patch of how to get the guitar to have a certain sound so that it can help facilitate opening up some of these new places I want to go on guitar, style-wise and sound-wise. So I'm searching for that right now to try to come up with something where you really you feel a real push to like try to be a little more unique and come up with something different. Because the guitar thing, it's been done, for 50, 60 years now, over and over and over. And there's so many beautiful players, and I think what really not just because it catches your eye, but it's an emotionally contributed thing to try to come up with something a little unique where you can I don't know, kind of base yourself in this kind of psychic nutrition or something. It's like when we first heard the great players we love. It's like going to see a great movie that has just a little different slant on it. It's like, wow, I just felt like I got a little wider. I just grew. I just lived two more lifetimes of experience from this thing, And to me, that's such a worthwhile thing. So I'm searching for that, And it's going to require me to kind of, become a little bit more, less solidified, more liquid, and try to open up and, kind of try to go somewhere you haven't been.
Have you ever been on stage and you're playing and you say to yourself, what year is this?
But you don't know where you are.
You don't know where you are. You so really lost. Yeah. Where am I? You're just playing.
You just kind of forget the moment. Yeah, those are awesome moments. I like that. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think the more it's a really, you've got a really great sound when you forget about your gear and you're just playing. And if you get so into it that you're not even sure of where you are. You're just like, you become the instrument. That's really, I think, the ultimate place to be creative with.
Where do you see the music business or the guitar, the role of guitar in society in the future? Since there's not a lot of guitar bands that are out in current bands, what are your feelings on that right now?
I think it's become more of a household thing. Like if you go to the huge music stores, they're selling more guitars than ever.
That's right.
It's kind of interesting because guitars not quite as popular in a sense, but I think it's shifted into where just all households have guitar for fun. It's become like an appliance in the house or something. But then I guess as far as the centerpiece of pop music, it's not so much that anymore because I think a lot of it has to do with that somebody needs to come along to kind of break all the rule books, and do something different with it. But happened with the saxophone too. The saxophone got less popular in the 60s compared to the 40s and 50s, and so I guess it follows the same way with guitar. But I think it'll always have a lot of potential, and for people to look at it and come up with something unique. If for no other reason, there's only a few instruments that can play chords and single notes,
right? And
guitar is one of them, piano, and so that puts it in a special place to where I think it has a potential to stick around for a long time and have great artists come and like reinvent the wheel.
If you had to say, read one solo that you learned as a kid that changed your playing or was the most influential thing that you learned, what would it be?
Wow. I remember one of the first things I learned, New York City Blues by the Yardbirds. I remember learning that. And when I was learning, I was so young, I couldn't understand what Jeff Beck was doing. And then learning Nazareth Blue. That song, and when you're talking about going back really early where it really kind of shifted my thought process, I'd say it'd be those songs, Nazareth Blue, happening 10 years time ago, which if you listen to them now, it doesn't really even sound like guitar. It almost sounds like a sax or a violin.
Yeah.
And that really that really intrigued me because it was guitar, but it kind of was. It was like was a little bit beyond guitar. It was like it morphed into this other thing. That solo on happening 10 years time ago is so beautiful. The tone, that was like wow. That got me into wanting to really look at it in a more serious way.
Are there other instrumentalists, players on other instruments that were really influential to you other than guitar? Any piano players, any sax players,
Walt Desmond, I loved his sound, and Bill Evans, piano player, Keith Jarrett, Joe Zawinul, Herbie Hancock. He's like the modern day Mozart.
Yeah.
You listen to the chord voicings he comes up with, and there's nobody that's voicing like he did. And he played on West Records when he was really young. And Wes Montgomery, listen to those cats. I love that.
Talk about Wes.
He has such a great sound. So immediately anything he played was pleasing, but then his sense of soloing was just so, it just sounded so natural and effortless.
Right.
And so organic. And it's interesting because it's like, that people say, oh, well, this person knows a lot of theory and this person might not, but it's like, well, Wes knew a lot of theory, but he just didn't know it from a scholastic way. He knew it from the ear training.
Yeah.
And you can hear that in his playing. So I think as he developed it, it had a little different. It wasn't regimented to what you read in a book. It was regimented. It was inspired by what he knew from his ear. And that's really good that we have certainly collected it. And he had everything he played, it was so natural and just like he could play any time. He didn't have to think about it. It's like it's like, oh, you want to record a record right now? Okay, I don't need to record, and had a real humanity to his playing. He was my favorite. He is my favorite jazz guitarist. Although there's other cats I love too, but his sound, you know, he just do one note, and it was like the start around midnight, just doing it down, slow count down. I mean, I totally end it. It's like a great movie that, you know, the first 2 minutes, and just you're in the movie. You know, it's cats I'm playing. He was my favorite. He is my favorite jazz guitarist. Although there's other cats I love too, but his sound, you know, he just do one note, and it was like the start around midnight, just doing a dum 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 da da da. So okay, I'm done. I mean, I totally end it. It's like a great movie that, you know, the first 2 minutes, it just you're in the movie. You know, it just gets you because it's so strong and has so much gravity to it. I live for those moments in art, you know, whether it's paintings or you know, music or whatever. It's just because it's so inspiring, you know, and it kind of like it kind of recalibrates the soul, you know, and it really gives, it's such a benchmark for what we can try to achieve or what we can try to go for, you know. It's like the other day I was a couple times I was listening to the radio, and all of a sudden you know, manic depression came on my head. It's like, man, that sounds fresher to me. I mean, maybe I'm just I'm older, but there was a certain one day I just about guitar. And then another day that I was listening to pop radio, and Eleanor Rigby came on. I went, well, you know, with a benchmark like that, it's like all of a sudden it's kind of, you just realize the stratosphere of where you can, you know, can kind of be, you know. So to me, it's inspiring.
What do you think about the lack of sophistication in contemporary music versus music of the 60s and 70s? Pop music in the 60s and 70s was far more complex,
Yeah.
from a chord progression point of view, melodies, things like that, than anything you hear on the radio today.
Well, I think a couple of things about that. I think, I mean, just my opinion. I mean, like some of the pop music, well, the function of it is, to me, has changed. It's not the same function of when I would sit down and listen to, you know, a new Hendrix record when I was a kid. It was like to be entranced and, you know, get chills and stuff. And I don't know if I think the function of music is more just to make you, you know, like, you know, jive with it physically, you know, like dance music. You know, it pretty much has to. I think it's more. It has to be in a dance platform, you know, whether you're dancing or not, but it's got that kind of body movement thing. But, you know, you listen to some of the dance music, to me, every once in a while you get some pretty cool chord progressions or some chord voices. You can tell these are really accomplished musicians.
Yeah.
I'm like, and to me personally, I listen to it going, you know what, this body movement thing. But, you know, you listen to some of the dance music, to me, every once in a while you hear some pretty cool chord progressions or some chord voices. You can tell these are really accomplished musicians.
Yeah.
Doing it. I'm like, and to me personally, I listen to it going, you know what, this would be great if A, they wouldn't use so much freaking auto-tune, and B, why is it, this is a real beef with me. It's like you listen to all the old stuff and you have drummers that came from the 30s and 40s that had a swing to their playing. And all the early rock had drummers that had a swing to their playing. And I even told Mitchell this, I had the honor of like playing a little bit with Mitch Mitchell, and I said, you know, you were as important as him as his guitar, because you swung his guitar, you know, and it was so beautiful. And you wrote these parts, like Ringo wrote these parts, and they're amazing, you know. But point being, I don't think it's ultimately in our best to dumb down the drums to where we're just you know, with a beatbox with the bass drum person. I mean, it's like, why not let these swing drummers be a part of this new pop music? It still is doing some pretty good stuff. And I was like listening to some of this dance music on the radio, and I thought, you know what, if you didn't have to auto-tune all this, and you put a swing drum with this would be a really cool track. And that's all you'd have to do. But then maybe it wouldn't serve the function that music does now, which is more that people...
Or maybe it would serve it better.
I think it would. Well, it would, artistically and musically, I think it would, but that is if I would have to ask myself the question, is the function of music the same? Is the function of music's changed so much that, well, no, we're not looking to sit down and go into another place where we could getting chills and thinking about our dreams or you know, we want music that we can just listen to in the background while we're working on computers and kind of tap our foot. Maybe the function has changed for some people.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a moot point, but to me, I'd love to hear. I mean, I think it's kind of it's a bit of a tragedy that I think the drummers have gotten the worst deal out of this because they, you know, you've had these beautiful drummers that could be a part of pop music playing. I mean, you know, a song, Motown song comes on, and it's like, oh my, listen to that. It's just got a thing, you know. And
absolutely.
And if somebody wanted to argue with me about it, or to point a different point, I would say, well, then why is it so many kids love this stuff? Why is so much of that music instilled in modern day movies?
Right.
Obviously, there's some magic there.
Yeah.
That, you know, and as you go through life, you always have these moments that were too valuable to forget. You know, like when I started, I did an Avi Musicom tour, and I had to relearn a lot of its songs, and I went, you know what? There are certain things I did then that are too valuable for me not to do anymore. So bring that. And as you go through life, you always have these moments that were too valuable to forget. You know, like when I started, I did an Avi Musicom tour, and I had to relearn a lot of its songs, and I went, you know what? There are certain things I did then that are too valuable for me not to do anymore. So bring that library book and put it into the present. You know, and there's some, as we find these jewels in the chapters of our lives, and we have to decide what's not that important and what is a jewel, and keep those for the, you know what I mean? And I think the jewel of the beautiful drummers from the 40s and 50s, that, you know, in the 60s, and the Hal Blaine stuff from the Wrecking Crew, that's too valuable a jewel to leave in the past in pop music. That's my feeling. Yeah.
You were just talking about going back and listening to some of your old records. Do you hear things that you say, oh man, why don't I play that, incorporate that into your playing again?
Yeah.
For example, what is something that is it would it be stylistic things or listening to some of your old records? Do you hear things that you say, oh man, why don't I play that, incorporate that into your playing again?
Yeah.
For example, what is something that is it would it be stylistic things or types of lines? What do you hear?
With me, it was more the sound I was getting, you know, and as I find, honestly, using newer speakers or newer tubes and a lot of the newer gear, it's going in a direction that isn't quite as easy for me to get the sound I used to get. So it becomes more of a challenge.
But you do use a lot of, I mean, Pedalboard, they use a lot of it. None of the stuff is made anymore.
No, it really, every month something gets quit making for it. It's fun.
Do you hunt around and find extra ones that...
Sometimes, yeah. You know, the tube thing is interesting. It's like for example, you know, the tube overdrive I use, it works great on a certain tube, but they don't make that tube anymore.
Right.
So it's really tough to keep that sound the same. And the tubes that I used to love to use in my Marshall amps, they don't make those anymore. So you say, well, we make this now, and I was like, and you know, I mean, I could go, well, it's not good. It's like, well, maybe it is good in some other situation with another amp, but for the sound I'm going for, it isn't. It dignifies it, so it's a little bit more of a chore to get it. But I think, yeah, just some of the sounds. That was the main thing that I and I think just the not thinking about playing when you're playing. You know, do as much thinking and practicing as you can when you're practicing, but when you start playing, try not to, don't bring that into the arena, don't think about it as much, you know. And so that was, I think that I've learned a little bit more about music, and interestingly now that's good. It's helped me in my writing, but it also makes me more aware of myself when I'm just playing. So there's two sides to everything. You know? You kind of have to check and balance what works and what doesn't. But I think in the past it was a little easier to get a certain sound that I wanted, and then I think that I didn't have a clue what I was doing. So there was a certain reckless abandon to it, you know. And then when now I know, well, that's just what you're doing now. So then there's a little bit more of a conservative to it, you know. So that's dull, you know, like trying to.
You were just talking about going back and listening to some of your old